The Specialized bikes rolled out their new 2021 Diverge lineup earlier this year. People were pretty excited about the redesign and some of the new features. However, I found that most of the reviews seemed to be specific to the higher end of the lineup, like the Comp, Expert, Pro, and S-Works models, which for me were just pipe dreams. For me, the Sport Carbon models seemed to check most of the boxes regarding features at a reasonable price point. So I made the purchase essentially based on the spec sheet, and this is my 500-mile review of the Specialized Diverge Sport Carbon. At $2,900 US, the Diverge Sport falls squarely in the middle of the 9-tier drop bar Diverge range. This one is the gloss forest green, papaya chrome, fern color scheme, which I thought was pretty cool. One thing to note is that the color is pretty subtle in real life when compared to the pictures online. It's even hard to capture the color scheme on video, but in the right light the details do come out. This model is one level shy of getting the SWAT down-tube storage system and the new FutureShock 2.0. And although they seem like nice-to-haves, I couldn't really justify the $900 jump to the next level. Now I don't want this video to be a regurgitation of the specs, so I'll skip those and just mention some of the things I really like about the bike, and then note some of the things that I wasn't crazy about as well. I should also mention that this bike weighs in at 10.2 kilograms or 22.5 pounds in its stock form with no pedals. So it's not a tank, but it's no featherweight either. The most noticeable thing about the bike is the relaxed geometry and stable handling. Coming from a 2015 Roubaix SL4, I thought I knew what relaxed geometry meant, but jumping on the Diverge, it makes even the Roubaix feel twitchy. On the rough stuff, the Diverge inspires confidence, and aside from some serious chunk, I'd be comfortable taking this bike almost anywhere. The only trade-off that I've observed so far is that when climbing steeper sections, it can be a bit of a challenge to keep the front end pointed where you want, as it tends to wander a bit. And I suspect this is due to the shorter stem and the slacker head tube angle. However, it's nothing compared to climbing on a slack full suspension mountain bike, and definitely not a deal breaker for me. The other concern I had was how this bike would perform on the pavement. I ride roughly a 50-50 mix of dirt and tarmac, and the Diverge replaced my proper road bike, so it had to perform decently well on roads. On paper, everything points to the fact that this bike should be substantially slower than a proper road bike on pure tarmac. Things like the more upright riding position, the wider tires, and lack of aero features all suggest that this bike would be slow on the road. However, I haven't noticed any discernible differences in my road segment times on Strava when switching from a Roubaix to the Diverge. Now granted, I don't ride with a power meter, but I feel like the increased speed on a pure road bike is relatively minor compared to the advantages of a gravel bike. In other words, saving a minute or two over an hour's long ride would certainly make a difference to pro riders, but for me, the ride experience is more valuable. In other words, I've come to accept that I'll gladly give up those minutes saved if it means I can ride off-road for longer in greater comfort. Now, no review of the Diverge would be complete without mention of the FutureShock suspension system. The Sport Carbon model gets FutureShock 1.5, which does not include the oil damper found in the FutureShock 2.0 on the higher-end models. The FutureShock 1.5 provides a rider with 20 millimeters of rider suspension above the head tube, which is subtly different than if it were suspended from below like a mountain bike. Now unfortunately, I can't do a side-by-side comparison between the 1.5 and the damped 2.0 version, but I can say that coming from no suspension to the FutureShock 1.5 actually makes a big difference. Initially I was skeptical that it was just marketing hype and that I'd end up being annoyed by the FutureShock, but the coil spring is actually very active and it helps with smoothing out the high-frequency chatter that you get on dirt roads and rough pavement. The motion is very axial, meaning that it only moves in the direction of the head tube, and there's no side-to-side flex or torsional movement at all. I got used to it within a few minutes and now I actually really like it. One thing that kind of bugs me about the FutureShock is this little plastic cover at the interface of the frame. It's not circular, so there's this little lip that actually rotates with the stem and hangs off the side of the frame when you're turning. It's more of an aesthetic gripe, as I don't foresee hitting my knee on it or anything. It just looks kind of silly. A few other relatively minor things that were somewhat disappointing. First, and this is not unique to this bike, the stock hydraulic brake lines and the derailleur cables were way too long. I've had to shorten cables on pretty much every new bike that I've had, but this seemed to be especially out of control. An hour and some manual labor solved this issue though. Another thing that this model comes with is a rubber down tube protector, which is actually a pretty nice touch. The only issue is that when it was placed on crooked, so it overhangs a bit on one side of the frame, and now it's peeling away from the down tube. Now, I ordered this bike from a specialized website using the click and collect process, which means a local bike shop actually took delivery and built up the bike, so I can't really identify where the error occurred. I really wish I had had the option to deliver it to my house so that I could have built it up myself, but that wasn't an option in my case. Anyways, it's not a huge deal, but I know if I peel it off to try and recenter it, it won't stick back with the same strength, so I'm not sure it's worth the hassle. The GRX 2x group set has been pretty much flawless after dialing in the shifting. The new lever design fits my hands really well, much better than the 105 road levers I had previously, actually. Braking is strong and predictable, and the clutch on the rear derailleur keeps the chain tight and, more importantly, silent through the rough stuff. I much prefer the 2x system as, again, this is my one and only drop bar bike, and it replaces my proper road bike. As expected, everything just kind of works. However, the anti-slip coating on the levers themselves has already started to peel after very little use. I'm wondering if this should be a warranty issue, but nonetheless, it's another minor annoyance. Now, the last thing I'll gripe about is the stock wheel set. Most bikes these days are generally under-spec'd when it comes to wheels, and I think the bike industry expects riders to upgrade their wheels anyways, so maybe there's a justification. Anyways, these stock DT Swiss G540 rims on the house brand hubs weigh in at over 2,000 grams, completely stripped down. And once you throw the stock tires, tubes, cassette, and discs on there, they come in at just over 4,000 grams, so definitely not light, and clearly some room for improvement. It would also have been nice to see the Pathfinder Pro tubeless tire with the tubeless ready rim spec'd on this model, but the Sport model gets the standard non-tubeless Pathfinder Sport in a 38C, which are okay, but they're kind of stiff and on the heavy side. Overall, this bike has been a really good choice for me. Like I said, it actually replaced my 2015 Roubaix, and it's my one and only drop bar bike for road and gravel. For the type of riding that I typically do, which is short to medium, 20 to 40 mile rides on roughly a 50-50 mix of dirt and tarmac, it's been great. The ability to string together bits of trail and roads with less traffic into a seemingly endless combination of new and interesting local rides has been the biggest advantage of having a bike like the Diverge over a proper road bike, and I am really happy to have made the switch. Okay, so that's it for this 500-mile real-world review of the 2021 Diverge Sport Carbon. Hope it was helpful. If I missed anything or if you have any other questions, just let me know down below. See you next time.